Yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Economic Development Advisory Board meeting for the month of November. Could we start with a a roll call?
Carol Killen,
Here.
Christos Moranis, Larry McDermott,
Here?
Keith Norton, Twan Arrington,
Here.
Nancy Kiefer, Bob Rand,
Here.
Harry Lloyd,
Here.
Helga Van Ecker,
Here.
and Dr. Victor Gooden.
What about Christus?
Yes.
She did. She called him.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Can we have an approval of the minutes? Everybody should have a copy of the minutes in front of them from the last
So
meeting.
moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, before we get to the reports, real quick,
Oh, yes.
for the board and for the chairman here. I received a letter last week from Chelsea Abend giving me her notice of resignation from the board of the city of Daytona Beach's Economic Development Advisory Board, effective the 14th of November. She is leaving the area, and that's why she's no longer going to be on the board. I have sent an email to the city manager asking him how he would like to move forward, because the resolution that adopts this board states that a recommendation has to come from the city manager to be approved by the city commission. My question to him was, if we want to appoint somebody now, knowing that in February, the appointments of Mr. Rand and I think Mr. Lloyd are also up for reappointment, or the position becomes open, I guess you have the option to be reappointed. And does he just want to wait till that period to just do 3 at that point, at that time? And I've not yet heard back from him.
Okay, and
Well, many of these positions in other boards are, and this one I thought was like this, where I would be the zone 2. Okay, well,
No,
that's the way a
this-
lot of the boards go.
Yeah, this particular board started so many years ago to get a representative from different businesses
Okay.
within the area, and schools and education and real
Correct.
estate. And I assume that's still the way it needs to be.
Yeah, that is correct. The resolution states that the individual should come from a set list of business and industries, and also including education with that. So that's one of the things we have to look through with the city manager for those applications that we have received to date and that we will receive here going forward, is do they fit into one of those, that criteria?
okay, yeah.
No, you're right. No, that's exactly right.
So at this point, there's nothing for us to act on.
Correct.
The city manager will determine whether the timeline
Correct.
that he wants to move on. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, what I would suggest is if we have someone that we would like to recommend to Derek, that we would send it to him.
Well,
Without
I think the
recommendation.
process is the applicants need to go online and apply online.
Correct.
And we can certainly encourage people to go online and apply. I
Yes.
think that's the process.
Okay.
And then to the extent that there are recommendations, I think we can, I don't know if we can do that or not.
Yeah, well, we can recommend, like, if we
Yes,
have
you can-
someone-
yeah.
if we have another attorney or a real estate person or an education person that we know personally, we'll say, if you're really interested in being on a board, please apply to the city. There's a whole list on the website, and we would ask you to please apply. That's how to do it.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And just for anybody else who's watching today, we have several positions on a couple of boards
Other boards.
that need to be filled. So, even if it's not this body, there are other bodies that also need bodies.
Right. Yeah, I'm the chairman of the Parks and Recreation Board now, so we need some people. So anybody out there who would like to apply, please do so.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One more thing, just for the record, I would like to thank Chelsea for her time that she did spend here, and we appreciate that, so.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
And she was the vice chair, so she had to sit in several
That's
times.
right, yeah.
And, yes, that's much appreciated. Let's move on to reports. Volusia County Economic Development, Helga.
Am I on? I'm on, good, thank you. So a couple of things to report about today. First off, just a reminder that Friday is our quarterly breakfast. Hopefully, you're all registered and able to attend. As you know, the quarterly breakfast is something that our department's been doing for years and years. This time, we're fortunate. We have the Deputy Director of the Small Business Administration coming to talk to us to talk about the different things that the SBA can do to assist businesses after the storm, as well as in general during the course of the year. She's got a great presentation. I've already had a chance to take a quick look at it. So a lot of good information for the businesses. And there, I believe, still are about 8 seats left. Otherwise, we are packed to capacity. The other thing that's happening on Friday is, you know, in our daily dealings, we deal with the U.S. Department of Commerce on occasion. And through that, I learned that they're going to be up in Jacksonville on Thursday doing a presentation about intellectual property and helping businesses to export from Florida to, you know, places outside of the U.S. And reached out to our regional connection, Ken Meridian. I don't know if any of you have dealt with him before, but he's a great guy. He was able to help us in securing the U.S. Department of Commerce group that's doing this presentation in coming to Volusia County on Friday. And we're trying to connect them with key businesses within the community that would be interested in learning about those things. They're going to attend the breakfast as a guest, but then afterwards, we're going to have a little round table so that businesses that are interested in learning a little bit more or just getting the lines of communication open with the U.S. Department of Commerce will have an opportunity to do that. We really are continuing our focus on assisting our local businesses in their goals to expand and reach beyond our borders. So this is a great way of doing that. The other thing I wanted to bring up was it last week or the week before? Time just doesn't seem to have any meaning anymore. We had Volusia Business Resources Week, and Jeff was actually part of that. It was, we basically took Volusia Business Resources, which you all know is the collaboration of all of the business resources within the county under the one umbrella, which we call VBR, and had a week dedicated to teaching and educating our community on what the different resources are, who they are, and what they can do for you. So every day at noon, from noon to 1, it was a 1-hour session during the course of that week. Each of our providers got to speak. We had Economic Development Day, which I want to say was Tuesday. Yep.
Yes.
And each of the economic developers within our county got 3 minutes to speak. Most of them did stick with their 3-minute timelines. And then another day we had the incubators on. We had all of the different providers. The universities were on talking. Team Volusia was on talking. The chamber had chambers all had representation. So it was a really educational venue that was put on, because a lot of people don't realize the depth and breadth of resources that we have in the community. And if you recall, last year when we did our business survey, we also surveyed the providers and learned that a lot of the providers didn't know what the other providers were providing. So the word provision, right? But it was really eye-opening to see what was there. And by the VBR group meeting on a bi-monthly basis in advance of this, we're able to communicate, talk to each other about our programs, and rather than have redundancy, we build on those programs so that there's that much more available, and we take advantage of those capabilities within our community. So VBR Week was a great event. The attendance was off the chart. Attention of the attendance was also good, which I didn't know that they can actually score on the metrics that they do. So so it was just really good. But what we've done is we've taken each of those presentations, put them down into little snippets, and you can actually view them, in case you missed it, on the county's YouTube channel, or you can go to Volusia Business, floridabusiness.org, our website, and see them there. So you can pull up whomever you want to speak or hear speak and learn a little bit more about what they do. So we'll also be posting them on social media. So that's a really exciting thing for us. It was a Herculean task for the staff to be able to coordinate everybody's schedule and get everybody prepped. There were a few technical difficulties because we are, right, Jeff? We are still learning this process. But it reached a lot of people, and it's a program that we want to do similar things going forward. The more feedback we get, the more we're able to improve those programs. And I'm almost done, I promise. Speaking of feedback, we have just kicked off the business survey for 2022. As I mentioned earlier, we did the business survey 2021. That survey actually is what allowed us to justify pulling together and spending the funds to start Volusia Business Resources. The county's invested quite a bit of time and money in putting this program together, including the website, which just launched last month. But that was done as a result of the feedback that we got from the businesses. We had, I want to say, close to 600 businesses respond last year. We're hoping to double that this year. Because if we don't hear what's going on in our community, we can't respond to it. If we don't hear what they anticipate their problems being tomorrow, we can't get ahead of them. We've got so much available in resources, as far as financial resources, and we've got this much available as far as community resources, but we can't direct them and focus them on the needs of our business community unless we hear from the business community. It's a very simple 20-question multiple choice. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes for anybody to complete. You don't have to go through your books and give us anything important. So we just want your views on what's going on and where you see your needs for tomorrow. That survey there's a link on our website. There's a link on the VolusiaBusinessResources.com website. You got it already. It's the first thing that hits when you open that. So there's going to be lots of social media to push that out. All of our partners are going to be pushing it out. Please, anybody who is within the sound of my voice right now, take the survey for us. Anybody in this room, please take the survey for us. And I promise you will not be disappointed. The community is focused on responding to the needs of our small businesses. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Helga. Any questions for Helga?
Yes, I did. How many calls you've been getting from small businesses about the storm damage and, ability to assistance either the county or the feds or whatever?
So, it's interesting. We have gotten a few calls regarding storm damage, but it hasn't been off the charts. And what I put that to is we've been putting out a lot of social media. We've been, the county and the cities have all been reaching out to the businesses and trying to do as much on a mass volume as possible and letting them know where the resources are. The emergency response center that's set up on Hulsenbach has been seeing people, and the SBA has been front and center in doing this. So the efforts that have been put out there have been great, and the businesses have understood that it's best to reach out to emergency response for certain kinds of things, and that's where they've been going. So communication is working, and what we're finding is the businesses are better understanding where they need to go for those resources, which was the intent and focus of VBR when we started it last year.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Team Volusia. Today we have Tawan Arrington. You want to bring us up to date on Team Volusia?
Sure. Currently, we have about over 100 projects in our pipeline. On average, we're receiving about 3 inquiries about every 2 weeks on average right now. We have the Southeast U.S. Japan and U.S. Southeast Association meeting coming up on November 16th through the 19th at the Rosen Shingle Creek Hotel. This is the 44th annual SUS Japan Conference, and it's chaired by Governor Ron DeSantos. Team Volusia on December 8th, they have a guest speaker, UCF President Cartwright. This will be our board meeting for the month of December. And also Team Volusia will send out an inquiry for the SpaceCom conference coming up in Orlando, February 21st through the 23rd. This is a free event, but it's also an opportunity to promote the Team Volusia County being in the Space Coast Triangle. So it's a good opportunity for us to be able to inquire new businesses in this area. And also Team Volusia is partnering with Daytona Regional Chamber of Commerce for a Market Watch Business Conference. And I gave out a flyer for that. That event is December 6th. And thank you for your time.
I have a quick question. The conference in Orlando, again, could you repeat that?
That is the SpaceCom conference. A lot of companies related to the space industries might be doing parts or different things related to the space aviation. So it's a good opportunity for us to promote the county. It's right there in Orlando. Team Volusia will have a booth present, but also the event is free.
Okay.
And where's that? Shingle Creek?
Orlando. That'll be that event as well as at the Shingle Creek,
Oh, sure.
And again, the dates on that?
February 21st through the 23rd.
Thank you.
Well, they want to be right against the holiday, don't they?
Yes.
Just bring those people down from north to enjoy the sunny weather.
Right.
In February, yeah.
That's a good time to do it. Okay, thank you, Tawan. Nancy, Kiefer is not here today, so we will pass on the update from the chamber. We have no old business. New business. Today we are going to have a
I'm sorry, time out. Old business, can you give us, or is that going to be coming from the city as far as the flood damage and anything else that you can enlighten us with? I know we've looked at the newspaper and we see how much damage. I figure that's kind of old business.
For the Ian, Public Works Director David Waller can also discuss that. And if you want to know about the newest storm and seawalls and buildings and that, I can bring Len Urquhart to our next meeting in December.
Okay, I just thought if you had something, that you could enlighten us with and how we're moving along with improvements and.
I think that leads us right into our.
So that leads us right to
our
David Waller. So.
We have Dave Waller, Director of Public Works, with us to give us a presentation on Mason Avenue projects, but maybe we could include some hurricane assessments in there.
Absolutely. Good morning. Yeah, we had two recent storms. They were significantly different in how they impacted Daytona Beach. Ian was a inland flooding, Nova Canal kind of impacted flooding event. It impacted pretty much everybody between Ridgewood and Nova, bell to bell, north to south of the city, and a few other ancillary areas up along Bevel Road. They're historically low areas. We took more water than anybody's recent memory can tell. Our own complex had about 3 feet inside the buildings in our maintenance area, and that was pretty consistent with our neighborhood and our neighbors around us. We're still working through the repair and getting folks, our own places back into shape, as well as I know the many residents are in the same condition. A little unique, I think, that event, that it wasn't just Daytona's bowl basin there between Nova and Ridgewood. It affected all all throughout the county, up through Port Orange and Ormond Beach, and even down in Orlando, and areas that don't historically flood took water need. I mean, 20 some odd inches is in a high tide at the time of landfall really created a significant issue for us, and the cresting rivers of St. John's and Tomoka and all just really was a unique impact for our community. And then in the most recent storm, Nicole was a little more what we're kind of used to, I guess, or more of a river impact, tidal impact. You know, the Ridgewood to the river, you know, pretty consistently was flooded all the way from, you know, Holly Hill down through our southern border. And then the beach erosion, which was, you know, Ian took 3 or 4 feet off of our beach in elevation, and then Nicole took another couple feet, and then that ate into the dunes. You know, you saw significant amounts of damage in the shores. We were blessed not to have as catastrophic damage in Daytona Beach to our properties, but, you know, the loss of beach and damage to our boardwalk and pier is obviously something that we'll have to work through for many more months to get that back to the condition it was before. And, you know, the big conversation on, you know, what do we do with our beaches is, you know, is beyond Daytona Beach's reach, but, you know, it's not the famous beach we're all used to right now.
Right.
Thank you.
How many businesses on downtown were affected? I know the old Cop Coal building, Stuart Marchman, which I'm on their board,
You know,
they've gotten hit twice now.
Yeah, I don't have a count, but I would suspect every business on Beach and Magnolia, other than the new building, the
Brown building.
the Brown and Brown building, and then the building right by Wall Street. It's got an elevated finished floor. It's newer. It's about 10 years old. The Wall Street building. You know, they didn't take water in their businesses, but I'd be amazed if anybody else on Beach Street wasn't impacted. And that goes all the way to Mason Avenue, Beach Street, and Blue Road. They all were significantly inundated by the river impacts. You know, the river was pretty continuous water body from about mid-block between Palmetto and Ridgewood all the way across the river. It was the highest I've seen it. It may have been that way in, what was the storm, five years ago or so, but that one happened at night, so you couldn't see it. Maybe it was similar.
This one was worse.
I feel like it was worse from a river inundation. You know, we got blessed with a good low tide the next day, and it drained very rapidly, but it doesn't minimize the damage that was done to our businesses and homes in that area.
I would imagine that Joe Yarborough is having to dance a little bit because they were trying to get that thing open by Christmas, but
Yeah, they still have, they got some targets still for an opening pretty soon. But I know Ian, we've had a lot of erosion along the riverside during Ian. They lost a significant part of their riverfront there and did a lot of damage. I know he's thrown some numbers around, $400,000 or $500,000 in repair costs to that riverfront edge to protect the investment that's been made in phase one. We've seen a significant number of trees down and stood up a second time. All that definitely slows down progress, right? And then the damage of things that get hit and that. And on the city side, we've got the docks at Manatee Island and the ISB underpass and day docks. We don't have a time frame on those. We're putting together engineered solutions that will be put out to bid, but material and contractor availability, and I'd be surprised if all that is repaired within the next 12 months.
Wow. All right. Mason Avenue, what's happening on Mason Avenue?
Mason Avenue. Apologize, I'm not as prepared. I don't have a big board today. This conversation kind of snuck up on me. It's been on my calendar for a few weeks, but we've been distracted with some other stuff. So, Mason Avenue is a triple R project. That's a state project it goes from Clyde Morris down to essentially Beach Street. I think they call it Riverside Drive on the plan set. Triple R is their maintenance program. Oak Ridge was a triple R project. You know, and really what they focus on in a triple R project is it's a resurfacing project. It's a little bit on steroids. So they look at problem areas and they work within the existing right of way. So, you know, for for Mason Avenue, there's a big focus on trying to minimize pedestrian and bike conflicts. There's an incomplete sidewalk system through that area and a significant number of bicycle ped incidents that are reported in that corridor, particularly between the Clyde and the state section between Clyde and the river. So there, you know, the triple R project will not add lanes. It's not going to do turn lanes. A lot of things that we think, you know, obviously we know that corridor needs, but it's going to have a really big focus on sidewalks and bicycle connectivity and trying to. It's got some mid-block crossings they're proposing to try to get pedestrians and cars to take their turn and be a little safer in how they share that space. It's a very tight right of way that doesn't have a lot of room for what we expect kind of in a modern roadway to fit all those pieces in, and then have the turn lanes and access control so that folks, I mean, it's kind of a free for all out there. And you know, the design is underway now. It's funded for design in 22-23, so we're about partway through design. They had a public meeting back in August to get some business and resident input. They are going to present at our city commission, and the first meeting in December. So it might be a good opportunity if anybody wants to have that direct dialogue with FDOT. They'll be here to have that conversation with our commission. It's funded for 24-25, which is pretty fast in DOT land. And then in addition to that, we've started a conversation, or a lot of it was predicated by push from our commission to look at, you know, really a phase 2, which would be the ultimate Mason Avenue. The ultimate Mason Avenue would look at access control and turn lanes at intersections and through bike and ped features that are a little more robust to meet our, you know, kind of the current design standards. You know, big part of that conversation, though, is on Mason Avenue is you've got a significant, which our staff has been feeding back to DOT as being important to the city as well, beyond, I mean, it would be nice to paste a 4-lane road with big medians and turn lanes and big sidewalks and all this nice.
The land.
But there's no land, and you've got a lot of very narrow commercial parcels that run along Mason Avenue that if you build the ultimate design that would fit from a DOT perspective, then you've got a business community that becomes one-sided. I mean, assuming you take the land from one side, and then you got residents that are on now fronting Mason Avenue, which is not ideal. So that's very long-term, because you know that would be what we'd, you know, kind of dub as phase 2, the ultimate solution. But you know, the ultimate solution may not be the ultimate solution. You know, you focus maybe on your intersections, do some turn lanes to free up some of those larger intersections, and then you have kind of a hybrid option that preserves a pretty unique business district over there that's got a lot of, you know, small businesses and eclectic kind of restaurants and, you know, very important partners in our community, you know, service providers over there. So how all that plays together, that's long range. But like I said, the project is funded in design now and construction in a couple years. It's a triple R project that, you know, sidewalks, crosswalks, and intersection treatments that preserve that pedestrian interface. I think it'll be a big step in the right direction for Mason, but it may be a little underwhelming when you see it done.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Just a quick question, because I'm not familiar with the funding. Is it city, county?
It's state funded.
State,
Yeah, it's completely state funded in their maintenance group, which is DOT has a maintenance arm. They do these triple Rs, and then they got their construction side that would do, you know, like East ISB is a construction project. They're buying right away, and they're doing a full to take everything out and start over. And Oak Ridge was a triple R. They work within existing boundaries, and they make it make the best improvement they can to meet the current needs of the community without buying right away and becoming this gigantic machine. And a lot of that is based on available funding. Like East ISB is only a mile-ish, and it's $20 million in right-of-way acquisition. And Mason is 2.3-ish in that range. So, and Mason has viable active businesses, unlike East ISB, that raises your cost. So if you look at trying to acquire a significant, and they only bought 8 feet of right-of-way on East ISB. You extrapolate that over to Mason Avenue, and it becomes something that, it's got to be programmed way out to build that kind of funding to get into Mason Avenue. But the conversation has started with that. But the current project is at Triple R, which I think the state in Daytona Beach, particularly this District 5, has done a really nice job on these Triple Rs to come in and do things like the Mason, Oak Ridge, looking beyond the traditional DOT model where, how big a road can we put and how fast can we move cars through, understanding in our urban areas that moving cars as fast as you can from one end to the other doesn't meet our community's needs. And DOT and the Jesse Bloom, who's is the project manager on it, they've done a real nice job of trying balancing DOT's mission, which is moving cars, and the community's needs to have that multimodal movement of people and bicycles. And we've got a lot of folks in Daytona who bike and walk by need. We're not necessarily all pleasure bikers and pleasure walkers out for exercise. We can drive down to Riverfront Park and do that for those who do that. But, in the Mason corridor and even along A1A, a lot of folks bike to work. They walk to work. It's a necessity. They don't have the transportation options beyond that. We've got a big bus community here. So we need to, and DOT's I think they've done a nice job of shifting their maintenance programs to respect the local needs. And look forward to what they do on Mason Avenue to come through design. It maybe as we get farther through the design process, the city has been involved in that from an input perspective. It might be something we could bring back when we actually have. Right now, we got a couple, they got a couple typicals, 2 lanes each direction with a green stripe. It doesn't really mean anything, Not much to go. Yes, sir.
Is there any plan? And I've got a copy of the plan. I've been kind of looking at it, but I'm not an engineer. So is there any kind of hard curbing going to be and raised curbing to where it protects the sidewalk a little bit from a vehicle?
They've shown couple different kind of options, and one of them has a little bit of curbing, and they have these little trying to capture some of those wet spots that are along there that they kind of don't have anywhere for the water to drain.
That's the other thing there. You improve drainage.
Yeah, they've shown a couple different versions as they start the early phases of the design, and one is kind of the, just scrape it off and you do what's existing, and they have another option that has a little bit of formal drainage put into it, and whether it can fit within the right of way they're trying to.
Yeah, even a Miami curb would help, but it wouldn't protect it.
I'm a huge fan of F curb, the unmountable curb against sidewalks. Particularly. You see with a few sidewalks that are on Mason now, they're just wide spots. Everybody just parks on them. The businesses use them to park on. You're not walking on Mason Avenue on a sidewalk right now.
How easy is that to fit into the overall?
It's tough because those curbs direct drainage, and so you've got to have some place to send it to.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
And that's a big part of the conversation with them on their design side is if they got spots to take water to, can they fit curb in to protect the pedestrian?
Well, maybe we can also help keep it out of the neighborhood too, in the south.
Yes, if there's infrastructure to take the water, then F curb is the preferred method to separate it. Yep.
Also, on ingress and egress to the city streets going north and south, like Pine, which is next to Nikki Lynn's, the animal rescue place. I think that's Pine Street, and it's got so many overlays of city workers putting bags of you know, a quickcrete there or whatever, the asphalt, that it looks like a teenager's face, you know? Is there any plan to go up maybe 10 to 15, 20 feet into the ingress, egress from the north-south roads?
Typically, they will include in their program the returns back to their right-of-way, which would be the back of the sidewalk. And then if there's a need to do a grade correction, then they'll go back farther with a right of entry from the.
Yeah, but there'll be as much as 6 to 9 inches of water that'll sit in that area right there. I actually made a video about it during my campaign because it was just one of those places where it just degrades the asphalt underneath.
Yeah, the worst thing for a road is sitting underwater. I mean, it's
Yes,
off
sir.
the base and then that's it, yeah. Yeah, I don't know about that specific location, but it's something that maybe we ought to maybe look
Well,
at.
go over and get a fish sandwich at that fish place over there, and you'll see it.
Very good. Appreciate the
I
feedback.
want to give you this, if I could. It's a little project that came to my attention.
Okay.
Sidewalk collapse.
Yep. Take care of it.
And that is the timeline for that is 24, 25?
24, 25 for
24,
construction.
25, okay.
Yeah. So they're in the about halfway through the design phase, which you don't get a lot in the first half. It's a lot of survey work and thoughts thrown out, and then they get the community input, which they had their first meeting back in August, and they're going to do a meeting with our commission, like I said, in 2-3 weeks, December 7th. Is that the first meeting in December? So they'll get some feedback from our elected officials, which will help steer where the project is going.
Okay, very good. Other questions?
Yes. Thank you for that information. Before you leave, do you have any really fun, enlightening things that you can tell us about in your position with what's maybe coming up other than Mason Avenue? I'm going to just put you on the spot.
Everything we do is fun.
That's how it works.
Right now, we've got a couple pretty neat projects we've got a great park project out at Daisy Stocking Park. It's the bids came in significantly higher than we were anticipating, so we're negotiating with our parent bidder and the architect to bring that down. It was budgeted at $2 million and it came in at $3 million. Pricing is just nuts right now. We're hoping to get around 2.5 for that. It'll be a real turn that park into a real active space for the community and some of the Bethune and other parts of that community there to use as a performance space, but also be an open community park with a small playground and pavilions and seating and an improved parking lot and landscaping. And I think it'll be a really exciting add to the community, to the existing space, and celebrate Daisy Stocking and who she was and her impact on the community.
Right.
The big part of the funding source is celebration of that's a federal grant for African American history, and she played a big role in our community. So there's a part of it is pretty neat. As we've done some of these, we got a phenomenal amount of history in Daytona, particularly in the African American history, and we got parks that are named after people, and I don't know who they are. So then we go and we do work on them, and Joe Harris was one we did, the old Harlem Park, a block or so away from there, and I don't know who he was, and we have to figure that out when you're going to do some work and try to recognize who these folks are, and it's fun for us to see who these guys are. We don't do a good job of sharing that information and kind of celebrating, and it's a neat part of Daytona's history that we recognize it by naming things, but then we don't put out there what their impact really was. And as generations go by, nobody knows who these folks are. So it's
It's
pretty
interesting
neat.
you brought that up because as part of the Parks and Rec board and everything, we've been talking about that specific area and as well as some others. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah, there's been some talk. I've only been here 7 years, but about there's an African American history trail.
Yes.
It's got some great locations on it to kind of move through, and not all in Midtown. They run over Beachside and Jackie Robinson Stadium and whatnot. But there was a push 5 or 6 years ago to try to mark some of those spots, and then there was some political unrest of the country, and they decided there was concern about some of the property owners of marking their spots. So I hope that subsides and we're able to, I know there's that rumble is back coming up to the surface again to kind of celebrate the trail and put some markers out. And I mean, I think it's something we really should do.
Good. Well, we appreciate you coming. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, we're
good.
good.
That's a good thing to report on, yeah.
No, we've got some, we're funded for some design work, which isn't as, we're not going to cut any ribbons anytime soon though, but for a park out on the west side along LPGA Boulevard,
Right.
we're doing
Is
some
that the
survey.
one named after the policeman who was killed?
There was some talk about, I don't know if that's officially named, but yeah, that was a suggestion that it gets named after
Rayner,
Rayner.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing an initial survey now and hopefully get some design work done this year, possibly. And we're going to do design work this year on some updates to Main Street and try to create a little more dynamic interest in Main Street. And Beach Street Phase 2 is in design, not funded for construction at this point, but we're about 3/4 away, 70%, I think, on those, on the design work for Beach Street Phase 2, which would be a great connection to get all the way up to Fairview. And with ISB and Maine, it'd be a great connected kind of box.
Sure.
And the state is going to do a triple R on A1A as well, to focus heavily on pedestrian improvements. That's in its infancy, but it really could create a nice dynamic, walkable, bikeable, the series of downtown parts of Daytona Beach that, bring Beachside and Beach Street kind of closer together. So,
Very cool. Good. Thank you.
but
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming and bringing us up to date.
you bet. Happy to do it.
Thank you,
All right,
David.
very good.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's move on to Economics and Strategic Opportunities Report. Jeff, do you want to lead us on that?
So, Mr. Chairman, you have the TRT report, or TRT listing of projects that we reviewed this last month during the month of October. The other things that we dealt with were responded to 5 requests for information from either Team Volusia or Volusia County Economic Development. Met with Brad Harris of the Volusia County Economic Development Division, the Daytona Beach International Airport, and city staff to discuss a project that I hope we'll have be able to announce here shortly on a major project. And met with about 3 other different owners on projects outside of the TRT of some economic development projects that they're working on. So that was my month amongst some other strategic opportunities that I don't include in this report, projects working on that will be coming forward as well.
Okay, very good.
The next part of that then is the CO report, and I'm going to briefly touch on this. I think maybe we're starting to see the downturn in the economy start to appear in our COs. Last month, during the month of September, we only had, actually this is October, I'm sorry, I forgot to change that. So during the month of October, we only had 47 single-family COs. And if you remember back, even in September, we had over 100. And what I'll do for our next meeting, even though it won't be a full, I'll look at a full complete year of December 2021 to November 22 and compare that to the same time frame the previous year and see if we're starting to see that downturn in the construction industry.
Are you starting to see a softening of the commercial projects coming through your department also?
If I use the TRT as a barometer, yes.
Okay.
Through the summertime, TRT was steady from 9 to noon of continuous meetings with individuals. Yesterday we had one.
Yeah.
We had two, one pushed back on a project, probably to a later date. But if I use that as a barometer, yes. But I will also, like I said, I'll look at our building permits issued and not just, I know for this report, we just look at residential, because that was of interest of how many people are coming into the community. But I will open it up to look at our commercial permits as well. And then look and see year over year if we're starting to see now that downturn.
We have several large apartment projects which the city commission has approved this last year, especially right behind Brown and Brown, being almost 300 units or a little over 300 units. Have those gone to in the process, a permit process, or do you know?
So Framework is working with the city on another project over here on Orange Avenue.
Right.
And they announced at their meeting, I believe it was last commission meeting, that they will be doing groundbreaking on the Atlantic Avenue property, or not Atlantic Avenue, over there behind Brown and Brown, that they will, that will be occurring next month.
Okay, good.
So that one's moving ahead. The other project that we had, that's the old, I think it's Baptist Church property there behind Popeyes. That group we've not heard anything from in probably about 4 months. At least I haven't. Now, if they've been talking to other staff, I have not heard anything about it. Haven't seen them come through with a site plan even.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to the review of the economic element of the city comprehensive plan.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, the main purpose of this committee, if you really look at it, was, or when it was instituted, was to ensure that the economic element of the City of Daytona Beach's comprehensive plan was being implemented. And so the city staff is now doing a review of all the elements of our comprehensive plan and updating them as necessary. And so when I first got here, one of the things that I started doing was looking at initially what this board was supposed to be doing to make sure that you were on track and hadn't gotten off the path that you should be on. But then also, I started looking at the element then, because this is what you're to and make sure that we're enforcing or implementing what is in this element. And so, which then led me to having some conversations with the planning director about, hey, I think we need to update this element. And he says, well, that's great because one of our planners is spearheading that effort. And so he and I have now had some conversations about the element and how it fits into the whole scheme of the city updating its comprehensive plan. And so I think we had a conversation a couple of months ago about, is this something that y'all wanted to go through the initial review on, or is this something you wanted staff to review and then bring back? And I think the consensus was we would bring it back to y'all for the first go through as far as any modifications, deletions, additions. And so the element you have in front of you, this is the template that the planner who's overseeing the review process on the staff side is using. So I think we should just go ahead and continue using it, but go through each one of these goals and like it notes there, either keep it, delete it. If we want to write a new one, we can write new ones. We can move or modify. So there's a list of things that we can do, probably not so much with the move or modify or move part. But on some of these other ones, maybe look at, there's some things that I identify that need to be adjusted because there's names and those kinds of things that are listed in here that the names have changed. And And then there's some things that maybe we need to move on with and discard them and maybe adjust some other things. So I think there's some work to be done in here. And like I told y'all at the last meeting, I don't think we're going to get this done today.
Right.
So this will probably be a couple of month process that we're going to go through, which is fine. We're not holding up the total review of the comprehensive plan. So we can go today as long as you want or as short as you want to get done and move through some of these, and then we'll pick it back up at our meetings going forward.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, let's well, understand, I mean, do we want to start with 1.11?
Yeah, so, and also keep in, let me just go here, and the two things that says keep, you can disregard that, because that was something that's in the document that I've tried to remove and I can't remove it. So don't think that I've already prejudged that we need to keep
Hey, Bob?
Yeah.
goal 1 and objective
Wanna
1.1.
excuse these two members if they like to, if they need to go.
Yeah, yeah, certainly, if you all, I mean, if you'd like to listen, you can, or if you'd like to excuse yourselves, that's fine.
It's just a lot of stuff.
Going to
you
go
bring up.
through the
Well, are we
depth of
gonna, that's my question, how much of this are we gonna go through, like?
I say we
in-
take the next 15 minutes, maybe 10 to 15
Okay.
minutes, and see what,
Okay, I have
let's
to
just
leave
get our
at
feet
about
wet a little
10.
bit here and
Perfect.
see how it,
Maybe I'll make another different suggestion.
Okay,
I like going through these things. A couple of these, I knew these were here because I was part of the writing this way, way back when. I just haven't seen it recently.
Yes.
So, how about if we each go through this on our own? Could we have a separate, like, workshop of our own to do this instead of using?
Or maybe
the-
the next meeting in
Yes.
December, we just dedicate to do
Or
this.
maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Dedicate it then,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
next meeting possibly.
okay.
And
Would that be
let us-
soon enough, Jeff?
Yeah, that's fine. I
Will
mean,
that work?
yeah, so what I can do is next meeting, I'll do this. I will excuse them from coming to make their reports. So,
Okay.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
And this will be the only item then on our agenda.
Okay,
I think
Okay.
that's good.
I'll
That's a good
submit the
idea.
paperwork that I normally submit to y'all anyway.
okay.
Um,
And I'm okay with starting to go through these, it's just that I'll have to leave in about 10 minutes anyway.
That's
So
fine.
next time we could plan.
Well, I think if we read them and reacquaint
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
with it, we'll be a lot more, a better fit for doing
Yeah,
better
yeah,
work.
I agree. I think we kind of try to knock them all out in one
I
session.
do have one question, okay? And policy 1.1.6, which is on the second page, top of it,
I saw that.
we have not had the state of the city meeting since COVID.
Right,
And I think we definitely need to do that again. And that's when the city manager, we would have a breakfast meeting. And I think we did it with the chamber with the eggs and issues.
we would do it
portion.
every January or February, and we missed it the last 2 years because, so, yeah, it's a good.
Because of COVID 20.
We can talk about that. That would be a really good thing. And that, the city manager came a couple of times and some other people came other times. So we can talk about that. A great, great point.
Yeah, because even Holly Hill has a meeting like that. You know, I've been to Ormond's and Port Orange's and Holly Hills, and, you know, we're much more business oriented, you know, for our land use. And I think it would be incumbent to try to reinstate that.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that Mr. Fieger has done that in the past in other places that he's worked at, so that's not I think it's more of a COVID issue. And the other thing I'll double check with him is, I know that in some locations, it's not the city manager who does it, it's the mayor who does it. But I'll double check here to make sure that, whichever way we need to do it, we'll
I think in the
get it
past,
done.
Mayor Henry's passed that on to the city
It
manager.
may be. So that's why I say we'll figure it out and we'll get one.
Okay.
We can address that. But it also brings up, as you were just talking about 1.16, and one of the things that we were just talking about, so 1.17, you know, weed and seed. I hadn't heard
I
weed.
don't know what
I
weed and
had
seed
not
is.
heard the weed and seed program since probably the early 2000s, if not the late 1990s.
What is that about? I've never heard
It was a redevelopment program and policing program pushed by the federal government. They gave out a lot of grant money to work on.
Well, we've had Mike Snapsaller,
Yeah, from
Yes.
Brown-
to come give us Brownfield report before.
Correct. And he will be here, since Ms. Killian brought it up, he will be here next month to do his report since
Okay.
the Cobb and Coal project is completed, and he will be able to give that report on that project.
Okay,
Perfect.
very good.
All right, I think that's,
Okay, so,
Good
so,
suggestion.
so we'll set this aside, and next month, we'll tackle this and dedicate the majority of the meeting to
Yes.
this. All
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
In the
the only
meantime,
thing-
if everybody could just kind of, if there's any background material that you think we need, go ahead and send it out early so we can, I don't know what kind of background material there may be that we need, but to help us prepare ourselves for that.
Okay,
Okay?
we'll do it.
All right, public comment. I don't see that we have anybody in our audience today, in our live audience, that is. And so there'll be no public comment, I guess. Next scheduled meeting is 8:30 a.m., December 21st. And we'll see everybody then. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And we'll see you next month.
thank you.